Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. The Other Side lets you hear directly from the most connected players and observers across the spectrum of politics in Mississippi. From breaking news to political strategy to interviews with candidates and elected officials, we'll bring you facts, perspectives, and context that helps you cut through the noise and understand all sides of the story.
Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Taylor Vance. Taylor, how are you doing?
I'm good, Bobby. How are you?
I'm okay. And we have as our guest today, Brandon Presley, former Northern District Public Service Commissioner. Commissioner Presley, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be with y'all.
And Bobby, I think I may have a little bit of a PTSD here since I covered Commissioner Presley's 2023 run for governor a little bit. Not necessarily because of anything Commissioner Presley did, but I think I've got a lot of his campaign speeches still ingrained in me, and I ate a lot of McDonald's burgers filing stories on the campaign trail.
We'll pray that the Lord relieves you of that curse from having to hear my voice in your head.
Running across the state. Let's start right there. I mean, you lost the gubernatorial election in 2023 by a
eyelash.
I mean, it was just I think 15,000 votes from going to a runoff. What have you been doing since then?
Well, resting up. In the meantime, it's been a weird transition, to be honest with you, because I got elected mayor when I was 23 years old, and from 23 to 46, so essentially half my life had been in public office. So it's been a bit of a move and a transition. But I'm proud to be the vice president of strategic initiatives for Edlin Renewables out of Lexington, Kentucky. Our company was founded by Adam Edlin, who was the state auditor in the state of Kentucky, chief of staff to Governor Steve Beshear, Andy Beshear's daddy, and our board's chaired by Jason Carter, who is President Carter's grandson. And Jason ran for governor, Adam ran for governor, I ran for governor. So there's a commonality there, but I've been enjoying that work and, getting time to really reflect on last year and look back at a lot of old friendships. I've been both literally and figuratively mending a lot of fences.
Yeah, you seem to be glowing a little bit in the studio, like a little bit of a weight's been lifted off.
Yeah,
you
it is a little bit of a weight, but I tell you, I miss tremendously the interactions with the public. I'm just a people person, so not being in that role has been a little bit of a change, but it's been a good change. And I turned 47 July the 21st, and so it's time for a new page and a new chapter, and it's been exciting. And moved to Water Valley since the election for governor. Caitlin and I moved to Water Valley. We actually closed on our house the end of May, and so we're just a couple of months in. So it's a lot of change, but good change.
Well, speaking of your time in public office, is that time over? I know right after you lost the election, you said you were seriously considering running again in 2027.
Yeah. I've seen, what I said was that my wife told me the next morning, she said, there's a difference between losing and quitting. And you can take that to mean whatever you want it to mean, and, you'd probably be right. I don't have any immediate plans, of course, to be on the ballot or anything of that nature. I'm really enjoying life as it stands right now, but, you never shut the door as an old politician. I'm a fire horse. Sometimes I hear the bell ring, I'm ready to run, and I have to beat down those instincts. But right now, life's been good, and we'll just see what the future holds.
And as you work in the private sector, but you also are heading up or have a political action committee. Yeah, absolutely. So you're still staying involved in politics.
And again, there's a difference between losing and quitting. It doesn't mean necessarily my name's going to be on the ballot in whatever year. I guess it'd be 2027 or 2031 or whatever. What I saw, Bobby.
But let me interrupt you. By today's standards, that wouldn't be old at all for you.
Oh, I know, but I feel old. You see this gray hair and these wrinkles. But here's the thing. When I ran for governor in 2023, what I found, and this is nothing new to y'all in the press or anybody who's covered politics, was there was really no organization in the state on the Democratic side of things that was building on a local level. I said when we founded the SOS PAC, Save Our State PAC, that, I'm not looking to found a PAC that's going to be an attack dog or go out and try to do the nefarious, nasty things that some PACs do in dark money and things like that. More about how do we engage those voters that I saw, that I looked into their eyes, I heard their stories, their families, I heard what's going on in their lives in places like Gulfport and Horn Lake and all around the state that turned out, and we won those cities. How do we keep those folks engaged, and how do we, being just a little bit overtly political here, how do we build a bench for the Democratic side of the aisle, and so that the next candidate for governor may not be Brandon Presley. Like I said, I'm enjoying life as it is right now, but for the next person that decides to run for governor as a Democrat, that has a bench built, has some organization built. I didn't want to take my toys and go home and pout and disappear off the scene as far as keeping folks engaged in issues, keeping folks engaged in their community. Don't have any interest in being the face out there of anything more than just trying to help good people that want to do good things. And I returned to my roots a little bit, y'all, because my first job, probably the best job of my political career, was being a mayor, where you see a pothole that needs to be patched, you can get it done that day. When you're a public service commissioner, you got to always wait 120 days to get anything done because of the Administrative Procedures Act. So focusing on the 2025 municipal elections is going to be a key part of what our PAC is going to do. We've got a great PAC board that's made up of leadership, the Democratic leadership of the House and Senate, and some other key folks around the state that were really there and had my back last year. And when you look at cities where I won in what you would think is a traditional Republican area, I felt like it was important that we engage there and we keep that momentum going. Again, not to be vicious, not to be negative, but to be really that supporting role for good people that want to run for office for the right reasons. I think is important for the trust that people gave me, the dollars that they gave our campaign, the sweat that they gave our campaign. I didn't want to be a guy that just went home and got on his lawnmower and faded off. And this is maybe in a symbolic but effective way, as a way of saying thank you and giving back.
There may not be any plans that you can reveal right now, but are there any specific cities or specific mayoral races?
Well, yeah, I don't mind to talk about a couple of them. I mean, I think one that jumps off the map is the city of Horn Lake. You look at Horn Lake, I won Horn Lake, I think, 74-26 or 70. It was overwhelmingly won it. And last election in Horn Lake, you had an incumbent Republican mayor, Alan Latimer. I know Mayor Latimer is a good friend of mine. He's not running again this time. A gentleman, Pastor Jimmy Stokes, came within a couple of hundred votes of winning there. Look, Horn Lake is not a partisan Republican city. It's just a city that hadn't been voting in municipal elections. It's good for our democracy. It is good for our state to find folks who have not been voting and get them in the practice of voting. And that's no matter what side of the aisle that they're on. We need more people involved in politics. We need more people civically engaged. No church would say we need less people showing up on Sunday morning for our services. No, you want more. And in a democracy that's healthy, you want more people being a part of that process. So, you look at Horn Lake. DeSoto County is changing. DeSoto County is purpling. I think the high water mark in DeSoto County, and as far as for a Democrat, I hadn't looked at it specifically, but that's a county that's changing. It is political malpractice for Democrats to seed areas like that and then expect somebody to run for governor or U.S. senator or congressman or whatever office, and expect there to be some organization there. I lived that life. I saw it up close and personal, what the lack of organization can do. And I'm convinced that had there been a stronger, more robust, coordinated type of organization on the Democratic side of things, we could have overcome some challenges that we had, even the challenges of Hinds County running out of ballots on the afternoon of Election Day, which very well could have been the margin of my race. But that's ancient history now. But how do we go forward and how do we build that bench is a question. It is something that the SOS PAC is interested in. It's the reason that I sent $50,000 of campaign funds that we had left over just to pay remaining bills and the things that come in. Once all those were paid, we had some funds left over, and we pushed that $50,000 into SOS PAC. And quite frankly, we intend to raise money in that PAC to, again, not be an attack. I suffered that, and I gave a tax, and I took a tax, and I'm past that period of my life. How do we support good people that want to go do good things?
Primarily just to give them resources.
Give them resources. Give them something that I, quite frankly, did not have in my entire political career as a Democrat in Mississippi, both as mayor, both as public service commissioner, and as the 2023 gubernatorial candidate. Y'all saw, I mean, we raised more money than anybody that ever ran for governor in the history of the state, including Haley Barbour. And we did it all with the help of a lot of friends and others, but without a true formal organization. And, you got to give you, hey, look, I tip my hat to the Republicans. They have spent decades building these type of organizations, and the result is they've got all statewide offices, a supermajority in the legislature, and have seen these county offices flip. Democrats have the right and, quite frankly, the obligation in the state with the highest percentage of African Americans in the country. We have an obligation to be on the field too. It's not just a right. You have an obligation if you're really going to speak for the people you say you're going to speak for.
Well, we're talking about municipalities in relation to your PAC, which are important. But I think of you as a rural politician. And how did?
Well, that's a compliment.
How did the Democrats are losing. Not only in Mississippi is maybe a pronounced example of that, but Mississippi, the Democrats where they failed in Mississippi or nationwide, it's in the rural areas.
That's right.
People have been talking about this for ages, but I just wondered if you had any opinions on.
Well, I think that one of the things I'm doing right now during this national election, Jamie Harrison, that's chairman of the Democratic National Committee, formed the Dirt Road Democrats PAC several years ago when he lost his Senate bid in South Carolina and went on to be DNC chair. He asked me and Chris Jones, who ran for governor of Arkansas, to co-chair that national PAC. And I say this all across the country, and I definitely say it in Mississippi. The first thing you don't do is not show up. I think that has been a huge mistake. Attitude, tone, demeanor, tenor of the conversations matter to rural people. Are you going to go somehow wave a magic wand? Probably not. But you're darn sure not going to win those voters by insulting them, flipping your nose at them. And it's one of the things that I think, Vice President Harris has made a good decision in picking Tim Walz. We can talk about him, later on in the talk today. But someone who, I heard from at the end of that race for governor last time, couldn't have been nicer. Called me after I lost. I mean, that tells you a lot about somebody. Most losers don't get phone calls from incumbent governors. But you show up. You keep making that attempt. And you can't be a big tent party in Mississippi or anywhere else in this country without showing up and at least giving respect and deference to rural people. And you may not get all of them, but you got to continue to go. And I think that if there was a solution to that, we'd all be living in mansions and driving Rolls Royces. But the fact is, it's a hard slog. And I think right now, most pronounced to me, look, I'll be honest with you, I beat myself up mentally and spiritually after that election probably a lot about just the losses in Northeast Mississippi where I had represented counties for 16 years and lost them just going and coming, And you begin to internalize that and personalize and think, oh, what was it me? Was it what? I did that a lot until I saw Roger Wicker get beat in the same counties by almost the same percentage points. And, Senator Wicker.
That was startling.
Yeah. And so then I felt like, well, you know what, Brandon, maybe it ain't all just you or the Democrat. Maybe there's just some things out there. And all of us, y'all have and I have studied political history. There are cycles to things. There are phenomenons of things that come and go. And I think part of what you're seeing today with Vice President Harris's rise in the polls so quick is you're seeing a shift. And whether it's show business or politics, overexposure is a true danger for politicians. And people just get worn out with stuff. And so,
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, and this may be a very niche question, but Bobby and I both worked for the Daily Journal before here. And, you lived in Lee County, represented Northeast Mississippi on the PSC for years. What do you make about that area of the state seeming to shift a little more to the right? I mean, you look back in history, and it has a long storied history of civic activism with Jack Reed Sr. A lot of people like that up there, and as you said, Roger Wicker, Senator Wicker, lost that area of the state in his primary race.
Well, Senator Wicker and I have been friends, and he's we disagree on 1,000 things, but I think is a basically good human. Of course, I'll be voting for Ty Pinkins come November, but Senator Wickers is not a bad guy. And I called him after that election, and I said, well, here's the thing about it. Welcome to the Lose Your Own Home Box Club. The only good side of that is you live to tell about it, and life ain't all that bad on the other side. I don't know. I think that it's, just our backgrounds with Northeast Mississippi roots. I think a couple of things. I think that in many cases, culturally, it's been easy, and sometimes Democrats, we've given the other side clubs to beat us over the head with on issues. Some have been manufactured, some have been dreamed up out of the wild blue, but we've not had good answers for them, and therefore people begin to socially not want to associate. That's number one. Number two is I think that, it's almost 100 years since Franklin Roosevelt brought electricity to Northeast Mississippi through the Tennessee Valley Authority. My grandmother truly believed that, on the way to heaven, you passed by FDR because he brought them out of the Depression and brought electricity and did those things. And, 100 years has passed. Times have passed. And it just makes for a different, I think it's as much cultural as anything else. And it's, it's not something as a Democrat I'm proud to see. But I also don't go and demonize the other side. People have the right to make up their own minds and do what they want to do. But I think that you look at somebody like George McLean that founded the Daily Journal. McLean's vision for Northeast Mississippi and the state as a whole was where community was central to what's good for everybody. We look at how we build our community. He used to say, I've got a video where Mr. McLean says, light a candle where you are rather than curse the darkness. And somewhere along those lines, the cultural shifts, the political shifts happened. A lot of it centered on when local officials began making the swap. Look, y'all know this. I'm old enough to remember. I remember when Lee County went from voting vast majority in the Democratic primary, because I had two uncles that were sheriff there, that was a huge thing, to now voting vast majority in the Republican primary. And then you saw counties like Etowamba and Tishomingo and Prentiss and others begin to make those swaps. And I don't disparage anybody that does what they feel they should do politically, but I think the effects are you begin to erode that two-party type of system. It's
kind of breathtaking when you look at the Mississippi legislature. It was not that long ago when the rural Democrat from Northeast Mississippi, Billy McCoy, and
my mentor. The guy I based 99% of my political life on was Billy McCoy.
That was a power base in the Mississippi legislature to a large extent.
Well, and think about this. You had Billy McCoy in Prentiss County, and his next door neighbor is John David Pennebaker, Representative John David Pennebaker in Union County. And literally the architects and daddies of the 87 highway program, which did what? Raise gas taxes to build highways. And today you would be tarred and feathered and ridden out of that county on a rail if you came up with that type of talk. But now I say all that, and I will say this: the number of folks you see engaged, fired up. You take Yalobusha County, my home county right now, voted for me. Yalobusha County is a county that's on the move with growth. So look at it in 4 years. Look at it in 8 years. Look at it in 10. Things have a way of kind of shifting back.
Sort of staying on, combining the 2023 election and the current presidential election. And you ran in 2023. on some Democratic issues, but you also ran as a conservative, which I'm thinking the abortion issue. Could that issue in Mississippi?
Well, the Republicans said I wasn't conservative. I was too liberal, and the liberals said I was too conservative. So
maybe there's an argument you were right where you needed to be, but
yeah.
but on issues like abortion, do you think that a candidate in Mississippi who maybe was more to the left on that issue, how would they?
Well, there's no doubt the abortion issue is going to be always top of the mind of a lot of Mississippi voters. It's just a fact. We've got magnolia trees, we got mosquitoes, and we got catfish, and that's a part of our state's DNA, and our voters are concerned about that in many ways. But I said particularly that, but I don't believe that the average Mississippian is for this extremist stuff of tracking who's doing what and all these sort of invasions of privacy, whether it be with your doctor or at your home or all this sort of stuff. There are a lot of people in this state that believe it's just none of your darn business what's going on within their life. But I'm not. My experience tells me that most Mississippi voters, have their own personal opinions about whether it be the issue of abortion or any of these hot button issues of the day, and that there's most people are in a camp. They're not moving out of that camp. The sad thing is, and this is what I saw so clearly last year, and it would just crumble, my family. And people say Democrat or, portray us as just a tail out the back and horns on the head. When, we were talking about in that campaign things like feeding the homeless at the mansion to show social justice, care, a heart, really trying to show what, if we say we believe the words of Christ, that we would be carrying out. And so, if you went to any voter I saw in all 82 counties, and Taylor, you made most of them trailing along reporting on it. If you went to those people and said, do you think we should have a state government that reflects the words of Jesus? They would say, absolutely. Well, what about feeding the poor? What about the homeless? What about the orphans? What about the people that are the least of these? Well, unfortunately, there would be some folks say, well, now, wait a minute, let's don't carry that stuff too far. Look, I'm bought and sold into the idea of social justice through a Christian lens, and I think that it's just become such a cultural war that many times you just can't even make that. You can't even get a chance to make that case.
And in a sense, you may win in a way in that the legislature is seriously considering two of your primary campaign platform.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah,
the sales tax on groceries, they're decreasing that, and the Medicaid expansion.
Yeah, so. And but let me to return to abortion just a minute.
Okay, sorry I brought that up.
No. But I think this is important. Everybody has their opinion on Roe versus Wade, but it's been, where were all these committees on families and children when Roe v. Wade was the law of the land? Did we just start caring about mothers and children once that law got overturned? Forget your opinion on abortion. But we've got select committees in the House and Senate. I know in the Senate, but I don't know about in the House. But you got these initiatives. Why now? Why just now? Let's care about mamas and babies the whole time. But, yeah, to those two issues of Medicaid expansion and sales tax on groceries, this is common sense stuff. This is common sense stuff that the average Mississippian just does not understand. Look, it's like I used to tell people that would joke about Mississippi State. I'm a state guy, and they'd say some disparaging joke about Mississippi State. And I said, don't ever cuss Mississippi State with your belly full, because we produce agriculture and meat and food. Well, at the same time, we cuss federal government money. If you didn't have federal funds in Mississippi, it would be like, get ready to somebody go find the light switch around here, because we wouldn't operate long. And I think that at some point we've got to quit BSing the public about these things. And let's get serious about a couple of things. Medicaid expansion makes complete sense to be done. We're doing what our state has done so many times in the past and tried to stand on that railroad track of progress or time or the economy and try to flag down that freight train and say somehow Mississippi stop this from happening. We're not going to stop Medicaid expansion from happening in, that liberal state like South Dakota, which is completely Republican that expanded Medicaid. We're not going to do that. All we're doing is cutting off our nose to spite our face. And our strategy on health care right now is just to turn north and chant 3 times or something. It's not getting anything done. And sales tax on groceries. Report out, I think, yesterday with third highest cost of groceries in the United States. I don't want to hear any Republican or anybody come talk to me about the cost of inflation or groceries when you support the highest tax on food in the United States of America. Go babble that junk to somebody else because I don't buy it. And the average Mississippian, thinking through these issues, it doesn't make sense. So, go sell that to somebody else. And, I think that you're going to see the legislature move, hopefully, in some direction. Some of my Democrats get mad at me about this, but, what the heck? I compliment Speaker White for taking real steps this last year to get Medicaid expansion done. Now, look, people can disagree with Speaker White on what they want to. I know him personally. He's an honorable man. He brought Democrats to the table on many things, and I think had a very good, solid approach. Leadership is not about partisanship. Leadership is about getting something moved down the court. And my hat's off to him for trying. I hope I don't tank his career by saying that, but Jason White's a good man.
Roger Wicker and Jason White are saying,
I'm voting for Ty Pinkins, and I don't get a vote for Speaker of the House. So let me make clear. And I've donated money to Ty Pinkins, so that's a good footnote too.
Switching gears to national politics, when I pulled up, you were already here, and I saw you had a Harris Walz sticker on the back of your truck. Are you planning to go to the convention?
First one I've ever been to in my entire political career. But, I think I'm like many Democrats, fired up to see the work that's going on there. I'm especially proud of the work that we're doing over at the Dirt Road Democrats PAC, really following up on a lot of the things I talked about last year and I've talked about for 20-something years in politics, reaching out to areas, showing up, knowing you may get your brains beat in electorally in these areas, but showing up, at least taking time to invest. And so, we'll be there. We don't go up till Tuesday. My wife has got some obligations at work, and I do too, so we can't get out of town till Tuesday, but we'll be there Tuesday through Friday.
Tim Walz, as you mentioned, was head of the DGA.
Yeah.
What are some things that maybe you learned about him, or that that maybe just the general public may not know?
Right. So I've never met Vice President Harris, but I've met not only Governor Walz, but had interactions with him, particularly at the close of my campaign. And look, this guy's a football coach. He's the type of person. There's some reason that he took a team that was losing every game and took it to state championships. He's a motivator. He is a type of person that makes you want to do a little bit better, be a little bit better. And when he would call me toward the end of the race in 2023, it wasn't about, Brandon, you're not towing the line correctly on X, or you're not saying this right. I never got any of that type of advice. Believe it or not, to those that think that your brain gets reprogrammed by a national party, that don't happen. But Tim Walz would call and just say, man, how you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you spending time with your family? Nothing about, money or issues or anything like that. And I think the mark more important than that is the fact that, he calls after the election, just the same way for a couple of weeks, checking in, just not about the Democrats versus Republicans, about me as a person. And, I have an intense appreciation for somebody that cares that much about you, not as a politician, and especially when you can't do a darn thing. I mean, I was on the way out, but he still cared enough to call. And I think that's what you see when people talk about Coach Walz, Command Sergeant Major Walz, Governor Walz, whatever title you want to give him. I think that you just see somebody that really cares about individuals and, and can put a lot of this hyper partisanship that's just ripping us aside, can kind of laugh it off.
Yeah, and like you, he's people don't realize, people think of Minnesota as this real liberal state, but outside of Minneapolis,
it's Tishomingo County.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly.
And he came from that area.
He came from that area and from Nebraska in the beginning, and there is a reason that things, when you look at Tim Walz, you feel good because Tim Walz is good. He's just a good person. And I think we've been yearning in this country for so long. We've been torn apart on all these partisan rabbit chases and manufactured issues. People just want a little normalcy, and they're tired of the carnival barking. They're tired of the worn out old shows, the same old stuff. I mean, there's just a point you can just predict what's going to be said. And it's kind of like you don't see anybody going shopping at Blockbuster video stores anymore because they're gone and people have moved on. And I think what you're seeing in the polls and focus groups and others is people have just sort of psychologically made a move.
Now, no one's saying that Vice President Harris is going to win Mississippi, mm-hmm. but she's trying to make history, and she's Obama, in terms of just garnering raw votes, got a lot of votes in Mississippi.
Yeah, 200,000. This is a number that shocked me, and I went back and revisited this a couple of months ago just to see if I've been telling the truth when I said this. President Obama got 200,000 more votes for president than Phil Bryant got for governor.
Yeah.
I mean, that tells you a lot. Mississippi is a state that's just a non-voting state, and we're working a lot in our PAC to try to increase voter participation. But, we'll see what the campaign does as far as a play in Mississippi, but I can tell you this, Mississippi Democrats are fired up for this ticket in a way that I haven't seen in a long, long time. And I feel like that this is, there are going to be plenty of people that are going to say not just no, but hell no. They're not going to vote for Kamala Harris, and I get that. That's their right. But I think you're going to see a lot of people in Mississippi. Maybe they're not out wearing garb or putting flags on their house or decorating their trucks up or whatever, but they're going to quietly go into the polls and vote.
Commissioner, we appreciate you sitting down and letting us catch up with you.
It's good to be with y'all. Yeah, good to see you again. Been almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year. Have a good time in Chicago. Take in a baseball game if you get a chance.
We are going to try to do that. So thank y'all, guys.
All right,
thank you.
As we cover the biggest political stories in the state, you don't want to miss an episode of The Other Side. We'll bring you more reporting from every corner of the state, sharing the voices of Mississippians and how they are impacted by the news. So what do we need from you, the listener? We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes or Stitcher, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That address is podcast@MississippiToday.org. Y'all can also reach out to me or any of my colleagues through social media or email. And as always, thank you for your feedback and support. Subscribe to our weekly podcast on your favorite podcast app or stream episodes online at MississippiToday.org/theotherside. For the Mississippi Today team, I'm Adam Ganeshow. The Other Side is produced by Mississippi Today and engineered by Blue Sky Studios. We hope you'll join us for our next episode.